Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this first YouTube live session here on the West Midlands Regional Cybercrime Unit YouTube channel. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. So let's start off with who we are in the Regional Organised Crime Unit. So the West Midlands ROCU is part of a national network that consists of 10 other ROCUs up and down the country, but we also work with Police Scotland and the Police Service of Northern Ireland. And our main aim is to protect businesses and organisations from cybercrime. But we also help people learn how to keep themselves safe online, themselves and also their organisation if they're part of one. In the West Midlands, we cover 4 different police force areas, working with West Midlands, West Mercia, Warwickshire and Staffordshire Police. But overall, our Protect network helps cover all 43 local police forces across England and Wales. So the average household has about 10 internet-connected devices, and that's in the UK, and I believe in the US the number is even higher, it's about 15 to 20. And each one has the ability to communicate online and become a way for cyber criminals to go ahead and conduct cyber attacks. And it makes sense that the more internet-connected devices you have, the higher chance that you may become susceptible to a cyber attack or some form of one. So is cybercrime important? That is the question. Well, you have joined us on this live stream this afternoon, so I'd like to think you'd agree with me in saying that cybercrime is very, very important. So in terms of the UK, in July 2017, Britain spent an estimated £10.7 billion shopping online, and I imagine that since then that number has gone up exponentially, especially over periods such as COVID and working from home. More and more people are buying things online. And back in 2017, that equated to about 1/8 of the UK's total gross domestic product coming from the digital economy. And in the decade of 2003 to 2013, UK's digital industries actually grew 2.5 times more quickly in the year 2017 alone than that whole decade. So this is such a growing area and also an area of concern in terms of cyber attacks and fraud. So cybercrime and criminality, in terms of businesses and charities, it's probably one of their greatest threats at the moment. There have been stories in the past, and I'll give you an example of one charity losing £13,000 after their CEO's email was hacked and a fraudulent message was sent to the finance department asking them to transfer money. The finance department believed that this was the CEO emailing them, and they happily transferred that money across into a criminal bank account. And obviously 13 grand for a charity is a lot of money that unfortunately they weren't able to get back. And you know, cybercrime is always serious and personal. Even if you are susceptible, you fall victim to a phishing attack, which may have been sent to, you know, a couple of 100,000 email addresses. If that happens to you and you become a victim, it's a serious matter, and also it's personal to you. And as well as the financial loss that you may experience, there's also that kind of that guilt and that shame you may potentially feel for falling victim to something like a phishing attack or other sort of cyber attack. So overall, cybercrime is very, very important. So let's start off by talking about social engineering. So social engineering is when criminals use tricks or deception to manipulate people into giving them access to data or systems. So giving unauthorized or suspicious people access to information or places could, for example, risk someone swiping patient data in a hospital or something like that. And each of these photos represents something. So the first one is a social engineer might use some sort of app to pretend to be a fellow employee. There are systems out there these days which allow people to fake voices and change their voices on phone calls to pretend to be someone else. So in the example I gave earlier about someone pretending to be a CEO, you could have someone change their voice to sound like the CEO. These days there are videos on social media and on YouTube of high up people in organizations and businesses, and it isn't that hard to recreate their voice. The second photo represents a physical security, so simply holding the door open for someone. Obviously it's seen as something very polite to do, but in this case physical security is just as important as your digital security. So it's all well and good having all of those digital implementations in place to protect yourself from cyber attacks. But if you literally have an open door to maybe your physical servers, your computers, anything that's logged in, maybe someone who has admin privileges, then that's obviously going to be a problem. Then we have social media, people posing as friends online. You could have your friend get their account hacked, and then they'll send you a message saying, hey, I'm really embarrassed to talk about this in person or over the phone. Could you please transfer me some money? I'm not going to be able to pay my bills. And you may believe that this is your friend, or family member, a genuine cry for help, and transfer that money over to them. And actually, it's not them, it's some criminal which has taken over their account. And then finally, you've got through phishing, which is what we will discuss shortly. But I do want to mention that these days, criminals are becoming more and more clever. They know what works and how the kind of climate in phishing and other social engineering scams are changing. And they will often research you or your target organization to appear more legitimate or convincing. It's not hard to go on LinkedIn and find out who the financial manager of a company is, who is the CEO, and then know who to pretend to be when they maybe phone you up or send a phishing email. So we'll talk more about the kind of things that you post online and what people can use later on. So let's talk about phishing. So what is it? Phishing is an email sent to many people asking for personal information or encouraging you to visit a fake link or a fake website. So what are the common features of a phishing email? Well, you have things like bad grammar. That's probably the most obvious one. But as I said, criminals are learning these days that they can't just quickly put together phishing emails. They need to be meticulous. They need to have good grammar and not have those really obvious telltale signs that they're a phishing email. They may have pressure to take action quickly. If you don't do X in Y amount of time, then something bad's going to happen or you're going to miss out on something. Offers that are too good to be true, winning competitions that you never entered, winning large amounts of sums of money that you probably wouldn't win. Obviously, people do win things like the lottery, but what are the chances are that you're going to receive an email saying that you've won, £250,000 randomly into your inbox? So just think about whether things are too good to be true, or whether that email giving you, an 80% discount code at your favorite online retailer, is that really a real email? Then we have design errors. Again, phishing emails of old would have a tell that they just look a little bit suspicious. The formatting may be off, the text might not be right, a little bit blurry text and things like that. But these days, the phishing criminals are getting better, but it's always good to have a look and see if there are any design errors. Most of us know what a standard email looks like from, Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Google. So just, take a couple of minutes and have a look at that email and think, is there anything that looks a little bit suspicious there? And then finally, untrusted sources. Links to websites or other external pages which look a little bit suspicious. Hopefully you know that if you go and hover over a link before you click on it in an email, you can see where that's going to go, and you can have a look whether that's going to a real website such as apple.com, or is it going to something that looks a little bit more suspicious. So just take the time to think about things before you go ahead and give away details, click on links, reply to stuff when it comes to phishing emails. So what kind of types of phishing are there? There are a couple of different types, and you can break it down into specific categories. So first we start off with your regular phishing. Regular phishing is just untargeted mass emails being sent to potentially thousands of people at the same time. We then have spear phishing, which is targeted emails using information about the victim to inform their attack. As I said before, it's not hard to search people up on LinkedIn or other, professional networking sites anymore and find out who is in charge of what, so you can go ahead and directly target them, not just send a generic phishing email to a generic, office email address. You might be sending that email directly to the person you want to exploit. Then we have whale phishing, which is a type of spear phishing, as it is targeting a specific person, but this person might be high up in the company or have desirable access rights in the system, like a financial manager, like some sort of network manager or administrator. That's what whale phishing is. It's targeting the high ups and the people who have influence to, move money around and make big changes. We then have phishing, which stands for voice phishing, which is phishing over the phone, getting phone calls which are trying to sell you stuff or push you into doing things maliciously. And then finally, we have smishing, which stands for SMS text phishing. So these are the text messages you get on your phone. Really common scam at the moment is Royal Mail asking you to pay some money for a parcel, some customs fee, and it takes you to a fake Royal Mail website, and they will essentially take your money because it is not a real text message. Things like that. So how can we spot the signs? We've been through this before. Bad grammar, pressure to take action quickly, too good to be true, design errors, untrusted sources. And here we've got an example phishing message. So as you can see here, it looks like a generic Netflix page. If you know anything about Netflix and Netflix emails, this looks very, very real. And this is actually in the format of a genuine Netflix email. But let's have a look at what some of the telltale signs are. So first we have a generic greeting. It's very general, it doesn't reference your name. And Netflix, they have your card details if you have a subscription. They know what your name is and it's in their interest to call you by name. So this is already a red flag for me. Next, we have iTunes being referenced. And if you know anything about a Netflix subscription, you know that those don't go through iTunes. And this is already, sounding alarm bells in my head that they're talking about iTunes, whereas my subscription does not go through iTunes. So you've got to think about the context of the email as well. And then also we've got this large call to action button, and it's not necessarily pressuring us into clicking it, but there is a little bit of pressure to go back and get your Netflix subscription again. But if you actually hovered over that link, in this case, you'll see that it will take you to something horrible like this, which may be a replica of a Netflix page, but it's not actually Netflix. And as you can see here in the netflix.com URL, they have changed the I in Netflix to a 1 in the hopes that you will not notice. And, potentially they may ask for your credit card details to resubscribe and essentially take your money. So let's talk about malware. So what is malware? Malware is malicious software that can cause harm. This includes things like causing a device to become locked or unusable, which is obviously very annoying on a personal level, but if you're using devices for business, for work, that can obviously affect your operations. Stealing, deleting, or encrypting data, again, terrible stuff. Taking control of your devices to attack other organizations, definitely not something that you want to happen, and also it will be using up the resources on your device, on your computer, to do those things rather than the tasks that you want to do in your day-to-day work. Mining cryptocurrency, which is essentially using the computing resources you have in your device to essentially make mathematical calculations that will produce the cyber criminal some money. And then using services that may otherwise cost you money, either for the joke of it or to benefit the cyber criminal. So all really horrible things. You do not want any sort of malware on your devices. So where does ransomware come into this? So ransomware is a type of malware that prevents access to a computer or the data stored on it. So the data, the computer may become locked, or the data on it may be stolen, deleted, or encrypted, which we spoke about how terrible that can be. And then some ransomware will also try to spread to other machines on a network, not even the ones that have necessarily been targeted in that attack. So for example, we have the WannaCry attack that happened with the NHS back in, I believe, 2017, 2018, where outdated software left the NHS vulnerable to attack. And that malware was able to spread throughout the NHS network, but also hit 230,000 computers globally. And not all of them were NHS computers. They just happened to be devices that were in some way connected to NHS and the network and be running software that was vulnerable to this particular ransomware. And in that, they were essentially collateral damage to that attack. So how do we go ahead and protect ourselves from malware? So the first thing we can do is update your software and operating systems regularly. So as I said, with the NHS attack, they had outdated software running on their devices, and this led to this particular ransomware happening. So update your software and operating system. Not only will you get some of the latest features that come with that, you will also get security features which happen in the background, which is obviously not the most exciting thing to wait ages for an update to happen and not see anything necessarily, but in the background, all of these security vulnerabilities are being patched, and it's really important that you do those updates as soon as you can when they come out. Don't click on suspicious links. That goes for links when you're browsing the web, links in emails, even links sent to you by people you trust, because they may have had their accounts compromised themselves and then pretending to be a friend or someone trustworthy to get you to click on those links and either spread a malware or some ransomware, or get you to go to a malicious link which will ask for, personal details or something like that. So don't click on suspicious links. Don't download files from untrusted websites. It's very, very simple. Don't download stuff from sources that you're not entirely sure of and can fully trust. Yes, you can, in some organizations, scan downloads for viruses and other, forms of malware and ransomware, but it's best not to ever have that on your computer in the first place. So if you've never heard of a website before and you don't trust it, it's best just to not download content from that website. Avoid using unknown USBs. I know sometimes, though lesser so these days, you might find a USB left on a table, on the floor, somewhere. Don't go and plug those in straight into your computer, especially if you have outdated software, old systems, old devices. USBs potentially can automatically run software in the background when you plug them into your computer, and if that software is malicious in any way, then you may accidentally install some sort of malware or ransomware onto your device, and that's obviously something that we don't want. And then back up your data to the cloud and to an offline hard drive. So at a minimum, have one backup somewhere, whether that is a physical backup on a hard drive of your system or simply just a backup to the cloud of your most important data, whether that's on a personal level, photos and videos, memories, or as an organization, important documents. Obviously, if you're part of a larger organization, they'll have processes in place for doing backups. But if you are unsure whether that happens, it's always best to ask and check to see if that's something that you do. Because in the case of falling victim to something like a ransomware attack, if you have a backup, that is pretty much your savior in terms of getting all your data back without having to pay any sort of ransom or having to do any sort of recovery work. So having a backup is fantastic. So let's talk about passwords for a second. It's a little bit cliche to talk about cybersecurity and passwords, but you'll see why I'm going to mention it right now. So a couple of years ago, there was essentially a cyber attack on a service called RockYou, and this essentially leaked hundreds of thousands of people's passwords onto the internet in a plain text format, just as you see in front of us, and someone has basically gone through those passwords and ranked them from the most popular password used on that service to the least, and these were the top 10 passwords used on that service. And as you can see, none of these are secure. All of these are really easily guessable, and if you had a automated computer program to run through these passwords to try and crack into an account, it would probably do it in a matter of milliseconds. So people still aren't using really insecure passwords, and in a moment I'm going to go over our best practice for making a strong and secure password that hopefully you'll also be able to remember. So we're going to now go over what we call the NCSC Cyber Aware Principles. So that's from the National Cybersecurity Centre. That is the kind of cyber arm of GCHQ, and they put together these steps on how to stay safe online, and that goes for a personal level for you as an individual, but also as a business. The advice is universal. So passwords, the first thing you should be doing is using a strong and separate passwords for your email, utilizing 3 random words. And by that, we literally mean 3 random unassociated words strung together. Whether you want to introduce capitalization, special characters, numbers, and things like that, that's up to you. But at a minimum, 3 random words. In case that your email address got compromised, someone got into your email account, they could potentially lock you out of all of your accounts online, including things like your social media accounts, things that you need for work or for home, and also things like your online banking, which can obviously be a big problem. So free random words strung together has been proven to provide an adequate amount of security against most cyber attacks. But if you want to go further and add extra security with capitalization, special characters and things like that, then you can do that. And the idea is that it'll be a little bit easier to remember three words strung together than it is just some sort of random string of characters and letters and numbers or something that's automatically generated for you. We hope that three random words is something that you can remember. Next, turn on two-step verification. So two-step verification is essentially where, as well as your password, you're asked to perform a second step in order to access your account. So this is something as simple as popping in a PIN code that may get sent to your email or text, or even just clicking a button on another authorized device. So you get a little pop-up on your phone saying, are you sure you want to log in? And then you click on that as a second step in order to log into your account. And we say as a minimum, put that on your email, because then that provides an extra layer of security into your email address. And that's pretty important. So at a minimum, two-step verification on your emails, but if you have the option for two-step verification on other accounts, then by all means, go for it. You don't get asked to do that second step every single time. It's only when you log in from a new device or a new area that's unrecognized by the application you're using. Next, save your passwords in your browser or password manager. And there's nothing wrong with doing this. There's nothing wrong with saving your passwords in your device, on your phone, somewhere safe like that, as long as the password to the device that you're saving your passwords onto is just as secure as the passwords that you're making. So let me explain myself. There's no point having strong and secure passwords of three random words all saved into, let's say, Google Chrome on your laptop. If the password to your laptop itself is 123456, or you don't even have a password at all, because that essentially creates, a weak link there that anyone can just log onto your laptop and then grab your passwords. So just make sure that you're using a strong password for your device if you're saving the passwords onto that device itself. But there's no reason why you can't do that in a browser or a password manager, such as a service like LastPass, to help you remember your passwords. Because we're all realists here. We know that it is hard to remember unique passwords for every single one of your online accounts. And we also want to make sure you're not reusing the same password across multiple accounts either. And then, as I mentioned before, backing up your data. In the event that you fall victim to a cyber attack, a backup is one of the ways you can get back to where you were in case of data loss. Ideally, you should have your backups in a separate safe location, whether that's in the cloud or on removable media, such as a USB drive, a hard drive, something like that. So for example, of my laptop, I have a copy of that laptop up in the cloud. It doesn't have absolutely everything. It just has my main documents, my photos and videos, the things that I care about the most if I damage my laptop or I fell victim to a cyber attack. But I also have a full backup on a physical disk that I've given to a family member to store in a safe and secure location somewhere else from where I am. And even that, if you do simply spill water on your laptop or you damage your laptop or device, having a backup is really useful for that as well, not just in terms of cyber attacks. So backing up your data, really, really important. And then, as I said before, updating your devices, out-of-date software, apps, operating systems, they do contain vulnerabilities that can potentially make them easier to hack into, and updates and patches can fix these vulnerabilities. So when you get that pesky notification on your phone or on your laptop saying, hey, we've got some updates to do, instead of just ignoring it, get those done at your earliest convenience, before you turn your computer off at the end of the workday. Just get those updates done, just let it do its thing, just plug it in, leave your phone overnight. Really, really simple, just let it do the update, and then you can rest assured that you're not potentially vulnerable to some security vulnerabilities. So on a different note, I just want to talk about online digital footprints and being aware of what you share. And that kind of links in with spear phishing and whale phishing and how people can search you up online to target you in cyber attacks. So protect your digital footprint. It will follow you. So not only from a personal viewpoint of the kind of things that you're putting out there on the internet, in terms of cyber attacks, you'll be surprised the amount of information someone can find out about you just based off of simple things that they can find with a couple of minutes of Googling. So what can we do? Search your name on Google, find out what comes up. You will be surprised the people that find that they've got something like their own personal home address on Google. Obviously, if you're running a business out of your home address, that's a little bit different, but just their own home address on Google, photos of them that they didn't realize were up there, old social media posts from years ago that they thought had disappeared or they deleted, but it's been cached, it's been saved somewhere, and now it's showing up on Google Images. Always worth searching your name on Google and just seeing what comes up. Change your privacy settings if things are showing up that you don't want them to. Put your accounts in private, and putting your accounts in private is good practice anyway, but especially if you do find content on Google and other search engines or on the internet that you don't want that anymore. Put your accounts in private, and then hopefully in a couple of weeks' time, things will update and they won't appear on there anymore. Don't share your personal details online. We all get told this from a young age, but this doesn't just extend to your name, your phone number, your address, things like that. It also extends to other formats of media, like photos. So we find in September every year we have a lot of parents posting photos of their kids going to school, but they'll take a photo in front of the house with their house number, with their child, and also like the crest on their school uniform. So not only do we know what your child looks like, we know what school they go to, which tells you what area you live in, and then we can see the front of your house, and we can also potentially see your house number. And there's obviously some potential safety implications from that. So just think about the kind of things you're posting online and what people can deduce from the things that you put there. And then obviously don't share your password with anyone. Obviously family members, close friends, if you're sharing accounts, not a problem at all. Just make sure you can keep track of who you have and haven't shared your passwords with, and just make sure that you're keeping safe and not just recklessly putting your password out there for others to use. So what can we do about reporting suspicious activity? So if you are suspicious of an email you get given, you don't need to be fully certain that it's a spam email, just suspicious. You can send this to the Suspicious Email Reporting Service, which is called SIRS, at report@phishing.gov.uk, and this essentially goes over to the NCSC. They have a look at that email, and if they believe it to be malicious, they can then take down that email domain or even the links that are contained within that email. And they can't do that unless you make these reports. So if you do see a suspicious email, please forward it to that email address. You don't need to give any other details, just forward it and then that's done. In terms of text messages, we have 7726, which is a number provided by most phone operators. If you get a suspicious text message, something that you think is potentially malicious or a scam, forward it to that number. It will reply back to you asking what number did that original message come from. You just forward the phone number to them so they know what they're looking at, and then they'll collate all those together and start to block all the numbers which potentially may be malicious, sending texts out to people. In total, there's been about 10 million reports received over the last couple of years. 73,000 scams have been removed off the internet, and 135,000 URL websites have been taken down. And that's, way more than 135,000 individual opportunities for someone to get scammed or lose money. So it's a real fantastic scheme, and it's only ever getting ramped up. So the more you report, the better. And you're not only helping yourself, you're helping everybody else in your community as well, not fall victim to these sorts of scams. So what can we do about actually reporting cyber attacks? So if you're a business, a charity, or any other organisation, you can get 24/7 crime and action support by calling Action Fraud. And there's the phone number there, 0300 123 20 40. You call that at any time to make a report of a live cyber attack in progress. As an individual, you get the same sort of service, but it's between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. for the phone number, but you can also report online through the form 24/7. And this doesn't just mean large-scale cyber attacks, though it does include that. It also means things that maybe you might not consider reporting in the first place. Things like your social media account getting hacked. That is stuff you can report to Action Fraud, and we recommend you do report it to Action Fraud so you can get that support get that advice, and also we can collate that data and see where are people getting attacked, and that helps us target our work. You can also report a cybersecurity incident to the National Cybersecurity Centre. They've got their website there, should you wish. So what are the next steps? So on an individual level, you can check out the National Cybersecurity Centre website for specific advice. So no matter whether you're just looking for advice on a personal level, you're part of a business, a charity, hospitality industry, any sort of industry, they've got advice specifically created for you. They've got guides for small to medium enterprises. They've got guides for charities and incident response in case you do have a cyber attack. There is a wealth of advice on that website, and I really highly recommend you go and take a look there. It's all free advice, absolutely fantastic stuff. As an organisation or business, there's a couple of other things you can do. You can join the Cyber Information Sharing Platform. So this is a joint industry and government platform which allows UK organisations to share cyber threat information in a secure and confidential environment. It's essentially a platform that you sign up to, you log in, and you essentially share with other businesses and organisations what's going on at the moment, what sort of cyber attacks and threats have you seen, and then you can adequately plan for them if you see other businesses being affected by it. You can join this platform with us as a sponsor. You just need to go onto the NCSC website and you can register there, put us down as a sponsor, or you can also use an existing member of the information sharing platform or someone at the NCSC should you know them. Additionally, you can also work towards Cyber Essentials, which is a government-backed certification to protect yourself from cyber attacks. And this is just a baseline level of protection against cyber attacks, really. It tells people, and you get a little badge once you've done it, it tells people that you care about cybersecurity as an organisation or business, and you have those kind of baseline protections in place to protect yourself from cyber attacks. From there, there's also Cyber Essentials Plus, which is like a level up, and that's a more technical verification of your ability to withstand and have implementations in place to protect yourselves against a cyber attack. So if you want to find out more about that, you can go and search up Cyber Essentials on the NCSC website and find out more if that's an accreditation you want to get. Finally, I'd like to thank you for watching this live stream, our first live stream of this year. If you aren't subscribed already, please do subscribe to this YouTube channel. We put out content every couple of weeks on the latest things, all cyber and cybersecurity. Anything that comes out from the National Cybersecurity Centre or advice that we have based on the current threat that's going on at the moment. So we'd appreciate it if you subscribed. And I just want to say thank you again for listening and joining us on this presentation. If you have any questions, please go on to Slido, which is an online question and answer platform. Put in that code 2955102 and you can ask me some questions if you've got any about all things cybersecurity or the things we've talked about here, cyberware principles, phishing, social engineering, malware, ransomware, anything National Cybersecurity Centre. Feel free to ask a question on Slido and I will answer it. So I'll be here for a couple more minutes to answer any questions, but thank you very much for listening and I hope you have a great rest of your afternoon.